Hello and welcome to the Watermark Water Cooler. We are meeting with Megan today, an account coordinator with us, and we're going to talk about using data to justify marketing budgets and aligning with business objectives.
Yeah. Hi, Cameron. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan. I am an account coordinator here at Watermark and ready to dive into talking about data-driven marketing budgets.
Just to clarify, Megan is more than just an account coordinator. She is the managing account coordinator here at Watermark. So she's the
Yes,
top
thank
dog
you.
in the account department. Just to clarify, we make sure we got your title right. Okay, so using data to justify marketing budgets is pretty important. I think it's something that we're trying to do better at. So what does it mean to have data-driven approach to marketing budgets?
Yeah, I can speak from experience and kind of dealing with clients one-on-one that establishing our marketing budget is always something that takes a lot of consideration. But taking a data-driven approach to marketing budgets involves making decisions based on empirical data, analysis of data, both past, present, and forecasted data. So instead of relying just solely on your intuition, kind of gut feeling, or whatever budget that your boss or higher ups choose for you, marketers can leverage data to inform and justify their budget allocations.
Yeah, it's something that we do, we try and do all the time is like before we just start saying like, we feel like this is the right
Mhm.
budget for your social ads, or this is the right budget for PPC. We try and use the data to understand what is going to make an impact for our client. And that means doing some research to figure it out. So what are the ways that we do that?
Yeah. So it depends on what the kind of media mix looks like for your company. But we often start by kind of looking at company goals. What's the current sales cycle for your product service? What your target audience is. And then from there, we can kind of establish what tactics are going to be best to reach those individuals where they are in their buying cycle. And then from there, once we kind of have that media mix of here's our plan strategy, now we can look at consumer behavior, market trends, past performance of campaigns, and then also some of our digital marketing tools through Google Ads or social media ads can have some forecasting tools that ultimately will give us some concrete data that we then can make decisions on if these budgets are going to be correct in order for us to meet our goals, get enough impressions, clicks, engagement, ultimately for us to drive enough leads for our clients in their pipeline.
Yeah. And to add to this is what does that do for us? Like it increases accountability on our side. It optimizes ROI, it enhances the targeting and personalization. We also have to be nimble about this and adapt to what's happening. It's like not set it and forget it. We can come up with a budget and we can find out that, hey, we are trying to predict something, it didn't work. We need to change our ads, or we need to change the budget, whatever that may be. It also probably enhances our, customer experience and understanding their pain points. And it gives us some attribution and helps us to forecast. So that's
Right.
I think those are all really great things that doing some planning does for our clients and for us to be better at what we do.
Yeah. I also think it's worth noting that sometimes more budget doesn't always equate to more qualified leads. A lot of these like digital platforms like Google, social, they will take your money. They want you to spend more on their platforms. But ultimately you could plateau and maybe the engagement of the audience isn't there. So you need to be kind of mindful about how you set these budgets, get you right to the point of this is the right amount of budget to be competitive in the market while still having a realistic cost per conversion on these advertising efforts. So that also is just an important note that not always more money equals more leads. We need to make sure that we have the correct amount of budget for qualified leads to come through.
And the platform is always asking you to spend more money every single time. They will
Yes.
say, To make your
Of
ads
course.
better, you need to spend more money. Well, it's not necessarily true. So I agree with that, Megan. That's a good point. So, that goes to defining some business objectives. How do we align marketing budgets and overall business goals?
Yeah. So I think that this always has to start kind of at the kickoff, at the onboarding stage. And then at the beginning of all of our campaigns, we should really reset on goals and understand what KPIs we're actually tracking in order to be successful. Um, so yeah, it looks at the business as a whole, what our goals are, how many leads we need to feed to their sales team in order for them to close them. So it's kind of a group effort here and understanding your conversion rates, but then your drop off rates to make sure that we have enough views and engagement on our landing pages, on the website, coming through form submissions, ultimately that we can keep the pipeline full and be successful.
Yeah, I'm going to add to this too. Like the lead time is also has to be considered for both, not only us, but the sales team we're working with is like, hey, you start marketing. I think this is something that we all struggle with is like patience, right? It's like, oh, well, we think we're running marketing. It should like be like instantaneous, like, but
Mm-hmm.
the client, well, we might be talking to the client. They're like, well, I have a 12-month buy cycle. And they're like, well, why am I not getting something in month one? Well, because you have a 12-month buy cycle, right? It's like, it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And your own buy cycle tells us that. And by the way, obviously Watermark, we spend most of our time in B2B marketing, and a lot of those buy cycles are long because that's just the nature of B2B work. What role do business objectives play in determining the marketing budget?
They're going to be key for determining our marketing budget. So I like to kind of work backwards on it. If we know how many clients we need to close or how many leads we need to have, then we can kind of move up from there. So how many qualified prospects do we need to be talking to on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Then from there, how many people do we need to drive on our website, on our landing pages? Ultimately, from there, if they're coming through an ad, how many clicks do we need to get on those ads? How many impressions do we need to make? And then ultimately, that will all determine our budgets for these campaigns. And they're going to vary based on channel, based on the media mix. A programmatic ad has different number of impressions, clicks,
Mhm.
cost associated with it versus a really targeted kind of email sponsorship.
Mhm.
So there are different things that you need to consider as you're coming up with these numbers. And ultimately, it's going to be like the quality of individual that you're reaching with this advertisement or with this organic
Mhm.
post ranking, things like that.
I think too, the other thing it's like we run into and see a lot is, um, we'll get somebody who has like very limited web presence. Their domain authority is like basically nothing. And then the ask
Mhm.
is, well, yeah, I want to like now double my leads coming in. It's like, well, you have like zero presence at the moment. It's going to be really hard to get you there without really looking at that and going, how many people are coming to your site now? And also, you said this a little bit is like, hey, uh, what is your conversion rate? Like, eh, they might have a depending on the business, it could be like one for one, which is obviously very rare, but it can also be for every 10 clients that we get one. We close one deal. So that's I think a consideration in this mix of things as well.
Sorry for the quick interruption, but I've got some exciting news to share with you all. I'm Cameron, Vice President of Watermark, and I couldn't resist telling you about our brand new CRM learning tool we just developed. The best part, it's completely free for you. We'll dive into essential topics like maximizing your CRM potential, automating those mundane tasks, and ultimately reaching those sales targets. If any of these resonate with you, I highly encourage you to click the description below and join us on this learning journey. I look forward to seeing you there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Talking about utilizing historic data, how can the past performance data inform future marketing budget decisions?
So the past performance data is going to be really important when it comes to future budget planning, and also future campaign planning. So we can identify our top performing channels. Also looking back on historical data, we can identify any seasonal trends and different buying patterns. And this will then allow us time to create campaigns to kind of plan for those peaks and valleys and any kind of seasonality. It also will be important of kind of looking back on what worked and what didn't. Failing fast, I also think, is important for some of these different digital marketing platforms. Maybe our audience isn't on those channels and we can kind of figure that out, fail quickly, make decisions, and then kind of pivot and reallocate budget as needed.
Yeah. So this kind of goes with that, is like, what are the pitfalls to avoid when analyzing historic data?
Well, as we know, we can kind of configure data to tell a story. So making sure that we're not cherry picking any data points, making sure that we're not ignoring any marketing conditions or changes. As we know, just like changes in the economy can ultimately impact how people are buying and engaging online. So maybe that's impacting things, and it's just not just only your targeting and your marketing budget or strategy. So it's just really making sure that we don't neglect external factors and that we're being having a clear mind when looking at this and not bringing in any biases.
Yeah. So obviously emerging technologies is going to impact budget as well. How are technologies like AI and machine learning influencing marketing budget decisions?
Yeah, so some of these tools are actually going to be really helpful for kind of forecasting some of our future planning. It is really nice now when you're setting up campaigns in Google or any kind of these OTT platforms. If you put in your strategy, your target audience, your daily budget, it can ultimately predict how many clicks, likes, impressions, things like that, what kind of engagement you're going to get from that. And then that ultimately will allow us to kind of set some realistic goals with these campaigns. And then based on those campaign goals, we can align them with our company goals to make sure that we actually are in alignment there. And then ultimately making sure that they line up with the sales team and the sales pipeline to make sure that we have enough touch points to convert. So I think some of these AI and machine learning kind of tools are going to be really helpful and impactful for kind of our future planning, but also kind of informing clients on here's how we expect our campaign to perform based on past data and the engagement of the audience segment that we're targeting.
Yeah, and I think too, it's gonna lower the cost of setting up campaigns because we can do it faster and quicker using AI. There's personalization that is going to be a way better with AI. So I think there's a bunch of stuff in AI that can kind of help us and make either budgets more efficient, or hey, the other thing too is like those things don't come free. So it is something that as we like move through this new time of AI, is what does it look like? I mean, I think all of us in the marketing world are learning and adding tools to our toolbox every day about with AI tools. So that one's still got a little bit of a question mark. Is like, do we absorb some of that cost? Does the client absorb that cost? There's some interesting things happening in that space. Are there specific tools or platforms that marketers should consider when data-driven budgets?
Yeah, I mean, without saying, we definitely need to have Google Analytics added to the site to make sure that we're tracking all of the data coming through, so that we can have clarity into the amount of users, clicks, engagement. Having a CRM is also going to be a really important tool for this. It just gives a lot of clarity into kind of lower in the funnel, specifically when it comes to sales. Sometimes there's a lot of people on a sales team. You're managing a lot of different individuals. Having them come together in one unified sales pipeline, or even having each salesperson's pipeline broken out to their own, just gives a lot of clarity into what's working, and then ultimately those conversion rates and or those drop-off rates that will ultimately then impact the number of leads and qualified individuals that we need to be driving in order for them to be successful and hit their sales goals.
Yeah. Totally agree. Testing and iterating strategies. These are a really important part of what we do. Why is testing and iteration mindset crucial to data-driven marketing budgets?
Yeah, so testing and iterating is always going to be important. I think that goes along with kind of optimizing these campaigns. I mentioned it earlier, but kind of failing fast, I think, is also really important. Sometimes you think this is going to be a great campaign. My audience is there. I think this language is really going to speak to them. But then once you start running the ads, you realize that actually another kind of version of an ad or a different layout of a graphic really resonates with those individuals. So it's really just making sure that we're analyzing our campaigns and then making decisions based on past performance. I think that's ultimately really important for the success of the campaigns, because it allows you to better understand your audience preferences. That ultimately, I can only speak from my perspective, but a lot of time the target audience are going to be different than who is setting up the campaign. So really
100%.
analyzing that information and then making decisions based on that is really important.
Yeah, I think us as marketers probably understand this more than anybody else, is like what we think is the right thing. The ad that we may hate the most is the one that performs the most. The verbiage that we think is the best is not the best. You know, it's amazing how people view things in different ways. Even though we, usually use a group of people to try and understand what's working and what's not. You don't know until you look at the data, and the data tells you the path to move forward. So being agile is really important in that, and I agree with that totally. What role does experimentation play in refining budget allocation strategies?
Yeah, I kind of think this speaks to the testing as well, but kind of trying a lot of different things will help you identify these top performing channels. From there, you can also kind of optimize and tweak the messaging and creative based on what's performing and what's not. It also will allow you to kind of look at your cost per conversion. I feel like that is a really key KPI that is important for the success of the campaigns. And it can very easily sway based on your targeting, your creative, and your overall strategy. So making sure that we're testing these different areas, seeing what channels are ultimately converting. But then if there are some other channels that we're using for more of an awareness, sometimes they have a very high impression rate and are ultimately supporting some of our other channels. So there's a lot of things to consider when you're setting these budgets, but all kind of going back to the initial kind of kickoff of these campaigns, making sure that you're really establishing goals, what KPIs you're tracking, and then how that will impact your budget, to make sure that you do have enough budget available to be successful, or kind of setting a budget that will work long-term for you.
And from what you just said, omni-channel is key, folks. Like you can't have everything in one channel. It just doesn't work. You need to be, like Megan was saying, having multiple channels that are supporting each other. And we know people are bouncing all over the place. There's so much static in everything we do. You don't know what is going to resonate with somebody at what point in time in their life, because there is so much static. Everything is just, there's so much going on, and people are looking at so many things. Maybe in this channel it's ignored, but in another channel it's paid attention to. So the omni-channel approach is just key to being successful. Okay, so closing things up, anything that you want to give some thoughts of in summary of all that we talked about? There's a lot there.
Yeah, we definitely covered a lot, but I think as kind of a conclusion wrap up, making sure that we are taking a data-driven approach to setting our marketing budgets based on these established goals and kind of composition of the company and team, your product service, what that sales cycle looks like, and then making sure that we are using forecasting tools to kind of get an understanding of the success of our campaigns. But then ultimately, once we launch them, making sure that we're analyzing them and optimizing them post-launch to make sure that all of the targeting, our assets, our messaging are all aligned and really resonating with the target audience.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Megan, for being on the water cooler today, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you so much for watching and subscribing to the Watermark Water Cooler. We value your opinion and want to deliver the best content possible. To do that, we need your comments and feedback. What do you want to see or learn? Tools, techniques, behind the scenes? Comment below and make your idea our next video.